You can make any chord progression sound better using more interesting and unexpected chords. And so in this video, I'm going to show you how to do this, to take boring chords and add extra flavor so your songs sound better. For example, if you take the common 1-5-6-4 pattern in the key of C, it sounds like this. This progression is so popular it's almost a cliche. Used in many songs like U2's With or Without You, the Beatles' Let It Be, Maroon 5's Girls Like You, etc. It's very common. And it sounds good for sure, just played as simple block chords like this with nothing fancy. But after a while, basic chords like these can start to sound bland without some variety. It's all the same old stuff. So to spice things up a bit, we can inject some flavor using other harmonies too, like suspended chords, seventh chords, and extended chords like these. The basic framework of 1-5-6-4 is still here, but with these additional chords, we can mix things up to give the progression more oomph. The question is though, where did these chords come from? With their strange names and symbols, they definitely look more complex. And how did I think to use these specific chords from all of the options available? I mean, when you open a chord book like this, the pages are filled with many seemingly random chords. Some of them are basic, like this open C chord, but then you'll also find weird ones like C9 sharp 11, which seem much harder to understand. And it's not clear how or when you'd actually use chords like these in a song. Back in the day, I was very confused by these exotic chords. I thought maybe musicians over time had experimented with randomly combining notes in different ways, so a book like this was just a compilation of these random combinations. And the musicians who invented names like this were maybe a little sadistic. But it turns out that's not the case. None of these chords are crazy or invented. In fact, they're formed using logical patterns. And once you know the music theory behind these harmonies, it's totally empowering. To show you what I mean, let's take the 7 basic chords in the key of C: C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished. I'm using color here to represent the notes in each chord to highlight the patterns that form them. C major is made from notes C, E, and G. D minor is built from notes D, F, and A. E minor is E, G, B. F major, F, A, C. G major is notes G, B, D. A minor is A, C, and E, and B diminished is built from notes B, D, and F. These are the 7 chords in this key. Shown as finger charts like these, you can easily see how to play them on the guitar by pressing the strings in these different positions. But to gain some deeper insight, it helps to take a more abstract view of the notes in each chord and how they're all related by plotting these same 7 chords in a table format like this instead. We'll get back to using regular guitar chord charts here in a second, but again, looking at these harmonies laid out in a table, you can see more clearly how each is formed. All of these chords are derived from the same scale. In this example, the C major scale, where each is built by starting on a different scale degree and combining every other note in groups of 3 to get C major, notes C, E, G, D minor, D, F, A, E minor, E, G, B, F major, F, A, C, G major, G, B, D, A minor, A, C, E, and B diminished, B, D, F. In this format, it's obvious how each chord is constructed and how they're all derived from the same source scale. It's simple. But how does this table explain how to play more exotic extended chords? This is where it gets even better because the answer is actually hiding in plain sight here. As you just saw, every chord in this key is built by combining every other note. C major starts on the C note of the underlying scale, then skips D to play the E note, then skips F to play the G note. Likewise, the D minor chord starts on D, then skips E to play the F note, then skips G to play the A note. And going down the line, each harmony is formed using the same pattern of alternating notes. In the vocabulary of music, we call the intervals between these notes tertian intervals, or intervals of major thirds and minor thirds. In the C major chord, notes C and E are separated by a major third, while E and G are a minor third apart. In the D minor chord, notes D and F are spaced by a minor third, while F and A are separated by a major third, and so on for all the other chords, where each is a combination of tertian intervals, major thirds and minor thirds. The three major chords in this key, C major, F major, and G major, have a major third between their first two notes, which is why they're called major chords, and the three minor chords, D minor, E minor, and A minor, begin with a minor third, hence the name minor. And then the diminished chord here, B diminished, is built from two minor third intervals, giving it a weaker or diminished sound. These intervals of major thirds and minor thirds explain how the 7 basic chords in a key are constructed. But this framework of tertian intervals does even more than this, in that it also shows how to play extended chords too. To illustrate, looking again at these chords in the key of C, notice the pattern that arises from these intervals. In sequence, these major thirds and minor thirds actually form a continuous chain that flows like a current of electricity through the notes, linking them together like this. From C to E is a major third, from E to G is a minor third, G to B is a major third, and so on, passing through all 7 notes in this key before returning to C again. This alternating pattern of tertian intervals connects each of these notes in a natural sequence. And this sequence is the trick to understanding extended chords in music. It's beautiful how it works, actually. To see this more clearly, we can plot the 7 chords in this key below their positions in this pattern. C major, E minor, G major, B diminished, D minor, F major, and A minor. These are the same 7 chords as before, only now overlapping in their natural order of tertian intervals instead. The pattern begins at C on one end, and eventually ends at C on the other end in one continuous chain. In fact, because the sequence begins and ends in the same place, it could cycle on forever. So to picture this more concisely, we can actually compress these chords into a single line like this, and then wrap the line into a loop like this to get a more compact view of this pattern of tertian intervals, made of major thirds and minor thirds in a circle, or what musicians call a circle of thirds. Now, the circle of thirds is awesome because it shows how all of the chords in a key are connected, literally connected as overlapping patterns of notes. For example, the C major chord, notes C, E, and G, shares 2 of the same notes with the E minor chord, E, G, and B. Notes E and G overlap in these chords. Likewise, E minor, notes E, G, B, shares notes G and B with the G major chord, G, B, D, and so on, in a daisy chain pattern all around the loop. In this way, the circle of thirds is insightful for seeing the relationships between different harmonies in a key. But the circle of thirds is equally powerful in the way it reveals how to build and use other, more exotic chords like suspended, seventh, and extended chords. And it all has to do with the underlying structure of tertian intervals in this pattern. To show you what I mean, the C major chord, for example, sounds good as a simple harmony of 3 notes, C, E, G. But in the same way this chord was built by combining the tertian intervals of a major third and minor third, we could just continue adding even more tertian intervals here to construct bigger or more extended harmonies. By adding the B note to C major, we get the C major 7 chord, C, E, G, B, and continuing on, moving in a counterclockwise direction, we can add the D note to extend the chord into a C major 9, C, E, G, B, D. Adding the F note makes a C major 11 chord, C, E, G, B, D, F. And then with A, the chord is extended to a C major 13, C, E, G, B, D, F, A. With these additional notes, these harmonies become more nuanced and textured. But the logic is simple. By adding more tertian intervals from the circle of thirds, new chords in this key are naturally formed. And not only extending from the C note, but also starting on the other notes as well. Starting on E, we get E minor, E, G, B, E minor 7, E, G, B, D, E minor flat 9, E, G, B, D, F, E minor 11 flat 9, E, G, B, D, F, A, and E minor flat 13 flat 9, E, G, B, D, F, A, C. Likewise, starting on G, these chords are formed, and so on, following the same process, going all the way around the circle of thirds. In fact, even more chords arise from this loop when you combine the notes in different ways, like suspended chords, sus2 and sus4, added 6 chords, etc. In the video notes, there's a link to a PDF that includes all of these chords in every key. So using the circle of thirds, this is where all of these harmonies with their strange names and symbols come from. Terms like add 6, or 7 flat 9, or major 13, they just refer to the tertian intervals that form these harmonies in the circle of thirds. And while they're a mouthful to say, and these labels might look complex, the actual patterns they describe are simple and consistent. So when we convert these chords from a table format back into guitar diagrams like this, mapped onto the fretboard, the logic behind their structure is no longer a mystery, and you can start to use them in your music. As an example, let's play the 1-5-6-4 progression again, embellished with the fancy chords we added before. But this time, you can see how each harmony includes the notes of this song's key. In this case, they're all notes in the key of C. All of these chord variations are derived from the circle of thirds in C. On the surface, these chord names seem complicated, but the underlying music theory at play here is simple. These fancy chords are all derived from the same circle of thirds in the key of C. Of course, in a chord book like this, all of the chords are organized by size and alphabetically. So it's not clear why they include certain notes or how and where you might use them in a song depending on the key you're in. They're just jumbled together in a big disorganized list. So to help you know which chords go together in different keys, I have a 429-page PDF in full color that's organized logically and clearly, making it easy to embellish chord progressions with harmonies that are naturally compatible. That way you can really master extended chords with ease. Check out the link in the video notes. And for one more example here, let's take another basic progression and give it some more interest using fancier chords derived from the key's circle of thirds. This progression is in the key of A, major 1, minor 2, minor 3, major 5, and it sounds nice enough. But by enhancing it with these spicy chords derived from A's circle of thirds, the progression goes to another level. The song sounds more ethereal and jazzy this way, and though the chord names look more complex, now that you know where they come from, it's really very simple. We made these boring chords sound better with the aid of music theory, and specifically the circle of thirds. For exercises that put all of this theory into practice, see the PDF link in the video notes. And again, you'll find thousands of diagrams and chord charts in the ebook materials, also in the video notes. So thank you for watching. Please let the algorithm know if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one.